Welcome to another episode, everyone. OG Big Reesei Cup from Rolling 20's Crip in Long Beach was the most feared Crip in Long Beach. In fact, he had respect in the greater Los Angeles area altogether. He brought Snoop Dogg around to the Rolling 20 Crips and put him on. In fact, Big Reesei Cup is credited with starting the Rolling 20 Long Beach Crips. And he got to the Los Angeles County Jail and demanded specifically that he go to 4800, the Crip module, where all of the mayhem was going down. Many individuals did not make it out of the Crip module back in those days. This is Boys in the Hood TV. Shout out to him.
Today we're going to be discussing the life of Double OG, Big Reesei Cup from the East Side Rolling 20 Crips. Now, Big Reesei Cup was born Eric Fraser in June of 1964 in the city of Long Beach. But Eric had a deep love for playing football as a kid and had hope one day that he could possibly play pro ball. By the 70s, there was a local crew in his hood called the Rolling 20 Hustlers. Who at the time, they were known for stealing cars and most importantly, just known for getting money and being hustlers in every sense of the word. Seeing this as a kid, Eric and his brother would take all of this in. One of his close childhood friends was a kid by the name of Baron, also known as Big Flossie. The two were known to ride bikes every day throughout the hood, before and after school. At the time, one of the most feared families on the east side was the Gator family, and one of the most well-known members was OG Papa, aka Willie. This family had a reputation which struck fear in a lot of people around that neighborhood. So if you fought one of the brothers, you had to be prepared to fight all of them. Around 1975 at a party in Long Beach on Salt Lake, most of the east side was in attendance at this party. The 20 Hustlers, the Gator family, and others. At some point in time, there would be talks of certain individuals clicking up and joining other groups, but there would be a disagreement about this, and this would lead to a split on the east side. That rift would create the formation of the Insanes, whose main hood would be on 21st Street. Even with this rift, there wasn't any real tension between the 20s and the Insanes at the time, because for the most part, everybody had family members on both sides. Eventually, Eric would attend Franklin Junior High School in 1976. Franklin Junior High was considered gladiator school. This is where a lot of fights popped off and a lot of kids caught their first fades. Eric was said to be a menace with his hands and running fades at Franklin with anybody. Eventually, this reputation of Eric's wouldn't just be at school, but it would be outside of school also, and he would be known throughout the neighborhood for having solid hands.
And that's true. When I heard about Big Reesei Cup, that's one of the first things that really came up, is that he was a beast with his hands, that he would punch on you and make you not want to fight anymore.
With fighting, Eric loved to play football, and he would eventually start playing Polly Pop Warner along with his friends. He would play the quarterback position, and he would excel. Around the same time, he would also be friends with future comedian named Ricky Harris, who also played QB, but was the backup. Both Eric and Ricky were known for roasting each other and all their homies, whether it be at practice or just kicking it on the block. Eric's talents would lead him to winning multiple trophies through playing football, which would make his mother proud. After middle school, later Eric would attend Poly High School, and of course, he would immediately go off with a football team, and it would only be a matter of time before he shined and became a star quarterback. But although he was making headways in Long Beach as one of the up-and-coming QBs, he would start to get in trouble hanging out on the block with the neighborhood OGs from the Rolling 20 Hustlers. Like many kids his age, he was lured in by that fast money, the street life, the cars, and this would lead Eric to start hustling in the streets to get money. Eventually, Eric would start going.
Yeah, and there's so many individuals in the ghettos, catacombs, and grottos of America that are so talented that could have made it out of their situations, but the lure of the streets and the culture was so strong that it overcame their potential. We see this here. He was playing quarterback, and we see many individuals in these situations that had so much potential that never came to fruition for different reasons. It just always pains me when I see that, man. Because who knows what this individual could have been other than an individual on the street harming and being reckless towards his own people, as I have been all of my life.
By Reesei Cup, which he got from his big brother Maurice. His street activities were ultimately lead him to being arrested, and this will have a big effect on his high school football career. Now, Poly High School had high hopes that once he got out, they'll be able to save his position, but sadly, Reese Cup couldn't stay out of trouble, and he would end up getting locked up yet again, and this time, he was sent to camp. Now, while at camp, he was still a menace behind them walls, and it was said that he would be one of many who would come up with the idea to call the Rolling 20 Hustlers the Rolling 20 Crips. And around 1978, the Rolling 20 Hustlers were no longer the Hustlers, but now they will go by the Rolling 20 Crips. Now, eventually, Eric's football dreams will go down the drain, and soon he will be fully engulfed into the gang and street life. Now, by the 1980s, Long Beach was hit with a wave of gang violence, just like LA and Compton, both on the west and east side of the city. You had gangs like the Insane Crips, the Rolling 20s, the Longos, the Rolling 80s, and many other sets. Now, the black gangs on the east side, like the Rolling 20s and the Insanes, were in a heavy war with the Longos, and this was a violent and ruthless war with a lot of gunplay. Now, Reese was extremely active in the streets at this time, and he would be in and out of jail constantly. Now, he was set to graduate by 1983, but in 1982, he would get locked up again, but this time, he would be sent up to prison in Tracy. Now, once he got back out on the streets in Long Beach, he would be frontlining it, and he would be looked at by many as a general of the 20s. It was said that Reese would pull up on the block and run anybody off the set that had no business being there, especially anybody that was out on the street trying to slang in the hood without permission. Now, Big Reese Cup would also look out for a lot of the kids in the neighborhood who loved playing football and try to show them the ropes when it came to the game. But one kid in particular, by the name of Calvin Broadus, which would be eventually known as Snoop, he would be seen as a big homie to him. Now, Snoop would eventually get put on to the Rolling 20s, and Big Reese Cup would be somebody that Snoop looked up to, not only for his cripping, but also having that same love for football. Now, by 1984, rock cocaine would hit Long Beach heavy. Now, this would lead to a lot of homies, especially on the east side, popping into the dope game to make their money. Now, Reese Cup being the hustler that he would have his hands in everything. Now, every now
Yeah, and it's debatable as to whether or not Snoop Doggy Dogg is really a member from the Rolling 20 Crips. I don't know. You all get in the comments and let me know. Some individuals say that he is a member of the Rolling 20 Crips, but many individuals say that he is not, that he is more of a character, more just entertainment than anything. He is not really considered a real member in the streets of Los Angeles, California anyway. Big Reese Cup, nevertheless, is indeed a real member of the Rolling 20 the Long Beach Rolling 20 Crips. And this individual, again, his name precedes him. In the Los Angeles County Jail, he had gotten into many scuffles in many situations. And on the street, in prison, individuals know who this individual is. Again, he's essentially credited with turning the 20 hustlers into the Rolling 20 Crips. So, of course, when he gets out of prison and he comes around and stumps around Long Beach, he's going to demand a certain order. It's not surprising that he would come onto a street and individuals who he says do not belong there, are not supposed to be over there selling drugs, he would run them off and they would be scared to death. Look at him. He looks like a menacing individual.
Reese Cup will be known to visit his family out South Central, who stayed in the V&G hood on 52nd Street. Now, although this was a blood hood, Big Reese Cup got respect everywhere he went. Now, it wasn't all about just gunplay with Reese Cup. If a fade needed to be ran, it was going to go down. At one point in time, he'd run into another G by the name of Kool-Aid from the Insane Crips, while up at Fabulous Burger, and they would instantly get to squabbling. Now, this is the type of Crip that Reese Cup was. He was ready to get down anywhere, at any time, with anybody. Now, by 1988, he would get arrested after breaking into a vehicle. Now, once Reese Cup hit county, he was specifically asked to be taken to the notorious 4800 Crip module, which was the most dangerous area in LA County. Now, this module, many people couldn't survive during this time period. So a lot of people would either become victims or they would roll it up.
You say you want out of here? What's the problem? These guys sweating you in here? He says you're a straight shooter. I'll call up here and see what we can do.
But Reese Cup.
Oh, man. So what's your problem? You want out of here? Yep. He looked like he trying to point at his eye. Looked like his eye was swollen, that individual there in the cell. He was pointing at something, saying, be quiet. He was doing something, making some gesture. And the officer says, I'll see what I can do. He probably in there getting beat up, stomped out, and who knows, Lord knows what else. This is how it was going down in the Los Angeles County Jail, particularly at this sort of time. This video here is in black and white. You can see this is back in the days, and 4800 is not a place that many individuals were able to survive if you were not serious and about that life. The fact that Reese Cup would go to the Los Angeles County Jail and request to go to 4800 is really an indication and a testament to his character.
Was one of many Crips who didn't duck any fades, but walked into 4800 ready to get it cracking. Now, as time went on, Reese Cup's rap sheet will continue to grow and stack up from minor to felony offenses. Now, with the gang violence in the street heating up, it was mandatory for Big Reese to stay strapped, because at the time, with gang violence at an all-time high, any false move could cost him his life. But by late June of 1989, Big Reese will be arrested for being a felon in possession of a firearm. Now, after being convicted, he will find himself facing a much longer stretch, this time behind bars. Now, he would touch down in several different prisons over the years, like Cochran, Lancaster, and several other places. Now, although out on the streets, Long Beach hoods like the 20s and the Insanes had issues, inside that prison, none of that mattered. The Long Beach hoods who put all that nonsense from the streets will be pushed to the side, and they will all come together under one car, and that will be that Long Beach car. And this will make them one of the larger cars in prison. Now, by 1998, Big Reese Cup will be released from prison, and he...
Well, yes, excuse me, all of the gangs come together. You know, whatever area you're from, whatever beefs that you have on the street, oftentimes you're going to leave that on the street once you are incarcerated, because you need numbers, you need each other, or you can be in trouble. So the Long Beach car is together in prison. Doesn't matter whatever beef they may have with one another on the street. They're behind the walls. They're going to operate as one and be structured together. You cannot come at one and not go at the other. They are all solidified.
He would immediately link up with his little cousin, Swoop G, from Rolling 20s. Now, at the time, Swoop G was with Death Row Records, and Big Reese Cup wasn't too fond of Swoop, working under a label ran by Da Moves. But also at that same time, his cousin was beefing with Snoop, which was his little homie. Now, the things between Swoop G and Snoop would escalate after Swoop G called a Reese Cup to come out to San Bernardino to meet up with him at a Snoop Dogg and DJ Quick show. Now, Reese specifically told Swoop G that he planned on having a conversation with Snoop backstage about the situation, but Swoop G would decide to run up on stage against Big Reese's wishes, and things will go down. Now, this would lead to a big old brawl, and eventually it will be broken up by the police. And this incident would cause a split with a lot of people on the east side of Long Beach, especially with the 20s. Now, Reese Cup at this point wanted to get into the industry and work with his cousin Swoop. But the issue was Swoop's affiliation with Suge Knight, and Suge Knight had that close affiliation, repping Mob Piru, and had a lot of Da moves over at the label. And Big Reese Cup, being the Crip that he was, he didn't want no parts of working for any Da moves. So ultimately, Swoop G would go his way, and Reese Cup would go his way. And this would lead to Reese linking up with his little homie Snoop, who at the time was working with a group called the Eastsiders, which included Trey D and Goldie Loke. Now, Reese Cup would make an appearance in the G'd Up video, was dropped in early 1999.
My name Gangsta Reese Cup. Trey D, Goldie Loke. Where we from up in here, baby? Eastside! It's a beautiful thing y'all doing, man. Firsthand what we was doing. And then you turned it into an art and you f***ing the world up.
Now, over the next several months, Reese Cup will continue to kick it with Snoop, but even with all this going on, being a part of the industry and rocking with Snoop, he was still an active member of the Rolling 20s. And like many gangsters in the street, it's hard to shake that street life, and it's extremely easy to get caught back up in the mix. And by early 2000s, Big Reese would find himself in trouble yet again with the law. Only after being out for a year, by June of 2000, he would find himself back in prison yet again. But this time, he'll be sentenced to over 20 years in prison after putting in work. But even behind the walls, he's still repping 20s and standing tall. Now, as of today, Big Reese is 60 years old, and he's currently eligible for parole in 2027. I would like to thank everybody for tapping in, and I'll see y'all.
Dang. So he's about to come home next year, possibly. Shout out to Big Reese, man. Get out and do something. I don't know, you can't necessarily blame anyone. You can't necessarily blame his friends, but the fact that we see this often too, where these individuals who become celebrities, who are from neighborhoods, and they make it out or they become rich and famous, and then they have individuals with them, excuse me, for a while, and they don't put them in positions not to go to prison. Not to necessarily give them money as your money, you do whatever you want to do with your money. But if he's trying to get in the industry and he's trying to make it, he brought Snoop Dogg around, put him on, and is kicking it with him. How does he then end up going to prison in the year 2000, at the height of Snoop Dogg's fame and riches, or what have you? I don't know, but of course I don't know the story there. Who knows what the reasoning is for that? Nevertheless, he's been in there for some time, about 60 years old, and is on his way home, as we just heard, next year. Shout out to Boys in the Hood TV for that narration. That was a good job. Shout out again to OG Reese Cup. I know of this individual. Many individuals do. And for some time, yes, indeed. I mean, I don't want to say too much. He's trying to come home. But out there in Long Beach, they certainly know who this individual is. I don't know his take now. He said there that he's still in prison, gang banging, basically. But I mean, he's probably still affiliated or whatever, but he's 60 years old. No one is gang banging at 60 years old. Perhaps he's learned something. He's been in there for a long time now. So, this hasn't been a walk in the park. Perhaps he has learned something and is going to come home and do, what is right in the community, do what is necessary to maintain his freedom. That's what's important. We're not getting any younger. 60 years old. Coming home next year, be 61, 62 years old. Man, you better enjoy whatever life you got left. But this is the sort of life that individuals, that a lot of us gang members were living back in these days, growing up in this gang culture. Perhaps it can all come to an end soon. In fact, I believe it will. People are sick of it. Stay safe and stay free, people.